Really appreciate you being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who's going to give us our talk on ChatGPT today.
Thank you. I'm excited. Now I'm just realizing I've got 2 things to click and a mic to hold, so that's going to be fascinating. So, of course, I had to ask ChatGPT to do this presentation for me. Why wouldn't I, right? Don't we want it to just do all our work for us? So it actually did a reasonable job. Introduction, 5 minutes. How ChatGPT works, 10 minutes, etc. Pretty decent. It even gave me more details on what to say in the introduction in the different areas. One example it said was you should introduce the concept of natural language processing in its applications. I thought, wow, isn't that amazing? Let's spend the next 45 minutes talking about the technical details of natural language processing. That sounds a little too technical for me. This is what I really want to know about ChatGPT. How can I get it to just do everything for me? So I came up with a project, ChatGPT and me, to automate myself, laptop in boat. So this is where it's going to do most of my job, but I still have to monitor it. Next, it's just me in the boat. The AI should be able to do everything for me, shouldn't it? Interesting thing about the images that I used here, I used OpenAI's Dolly image generator to create them. And then I used a new plugin from ChatGPT called Code Generator, which is apparently pretty good at data visualizations and other image manipulation things. So I tried the image manipulation. I asked for it to add the words "just boat" to the picture in large font, large bold font, and you cannot see it, but it is right here. So then I said, "Hey, that's kind of terrible. It needs to be bigger font and in the top left." And it apologized and said it can't do the bigger font, but moved it to the top left. It didn't actually move it. It just put another copy. So now you see both. Anyways, I had this ChatGPT don't quit your day job moment. Anyways, here's the real agenda, because of course I wasn't going to follow the AI. I'll keep talking some. Then we're going to get some demos from smart data folks. They're going to kind of go through a process of the software development lifecycle. So hopefully we get a good coverage of that. And then we'll have Q&A at the end. And I probably will fire up my OpenAI and make it answer the questions if you get too technical and detailed. So be aware. Also, I do want to say in the Q&A, when we get to there, please feel free to raise your hand. And if you have something to add that you think will help answer the question or provide some context or perspective, I want it to be like a bit of an open discussion versus me just trying to answer questions badly. Okay, so I wanted to level up on some terminology just in case you all haven't been studying OpenAI and reading about it every day. I haven't been reading about it every day, but it feels like Google has now realized that I'm interested in it, and every other article is about AI. So ChatGPT, you should know, especially if you're in IT, that this is an implementation of a large language model. GPT-4 uses a technique called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or with human feedback. We're going to learn a little bit more about that shortly here. Obviously, we should know it's developed by OpenAI, and Microsoft is its largest backer. So it uses a thing called tokens. So when you're sending in data, it converts it into tokens. I took an example from the ChatGPT website. ChatGPT is great! Exclamation. That's 6 tokens. Figure that one out on your own. Little test for you. Don't look it up online. What's that? No, it's 2. And decide which 2. So large language models, a specific application of neural networks, particularly deep learning models that do cool stuff that we've been learning about, okay? Neural network is a computational machine learning model. It's inspired by the human brain. It can be used for a wide variety of tasks. I'll show you one example quickly that we did. There are various types of neural networks that can be used, such as the transformer model. That was the model that OpenAI used to train ChatGPT. So generative AI, that's just the more general term to talk about machine learning algorithms trying to create stuff, sometimes amazingly, sometimes hallucinatingly, apparently is the word of the day, hallucinating. But the reinforcement learning from human feedback. This is one that's really interesting. And Sam Altman said, we're even still early in our understanding of how effective this is and why it's as effective. And I wanted to read the specific definition of it because I think it's good as technical people to have sometimes a technical understanding of things. So reinforcement, it says this about RLHF. Human labelers evaluate and rank different responses generated by the model, okay? These rankings are then used to train a reward model that estimates the quality of the large language model's predictions. Then using that reward model, the large language model is again fine-tuned, this time through a technique called reinforcement learning. And doing this process is what makes ChatGPT 4 pretty fantastic. So very interesting how it needed some help from humans to get to where it is. I mean, it was humans who built the whole thing, so to be fair. Here's an example of a project that was done by Smart Data. It is using a neural network, not a large language model, and it is using it to look at PCR output from COVID. Yes, that was a thing, remember, and to decide if the tests are negative, positive, or undetermined. And it was actually pretty fantastic at it. And a nice looking AI too, so it makes for a great presentation picture. There are lots of other machine learning models, of course, linear regression, logistic regression, decision trees, et cetera, it goes on. So other important GPT points I want you to know. GPT-4 improvements are primarily in the area of creativity, visual input, and longer context. And there's some pretty amazing things coming out about all of that. There's a creativity test called the TTCT, in which ChatGPT actually scored better than 99% of humans on the creativity test. So that's pretty astounding and interesting. Visual inputs, well, you saw my example of the visual inputs. I've seen better examples of stuff. Back to prompt engineering, right? You got to be good at telling the machine what to do in order for you to get some decent stuff. Apparently, I should not be a prompt engineer, at least for images. So GPT 3.5 and GPT-4, you probably know by now it's only trained up on data up to 2021, but you can feed it data that is more recent. I'm going to show you a quick example of that. Why is it only trained on data from 2021 and not 2022 and 2023? I'm going to ask that quick question and break my rule about holding your comments to the end. Any quick thoughts on what is the why wouldn't they just go ahead and retrain it right now in 2023? What's holding them back generally? Any thoughts? It takes a lot of processing power to retrain these models, that they're just not happening like I'll just retrain on everything today. So hardware does hold back AI, and we're going to talk about that. It's an interesting point later here. There's a limit right now on how much you can send ChatGPT in a single prompt. It's 8K tokens. I've read that there's a version that's 32K tokens. I haven't seen that. There's a GPT API. So if you're not aware of that, we've already done a couple projects. It's going to be mentioned, one of them, where you can take the GPT API and wire it into your own software solution. So if your company is asking you and talking about it, expect to get familiar with that soon. You can enhance a large language model with other data, right? Fine tuning is one technique, embedding. There are now companies coming out, AI as a service, where you can basically give them your data and they will they'll help you get through it. They can do on-premise too, yada, yada. But that's all, that's coming. So you can take the value of, hey, here's what ChatGPT or another kind of LLM, and then again, build it with other data you have. We have a customer that's using oncology data that's going to improve, that's going to be built on top of an existing large language model. It ain't free. Everything in this money is about world. So if you want to go beyond the basic chatbot, expect to pay. So this, and you can go watch this video on OpenAI's website. When they introduced GPT-4, they did an example of, the developer did an example of somebody building a Discord chatbot using the Discord API. I'm not going to go through that whole thing, but I wanted to draw out a couple specific points about it. At one point, the developer said there was the Discord API had a function called chat completions, which had been developed post 2021. So ChatGPT was not aware of it. So the developer tells ChatGPT about the function and says, hey, this API has a function. It works like this, and you can do it to do this. Feel free to please use it. And so it says fine, and it actually uses it as part of building the application. So doing that, the developer compiles it and then gets an error. Okay, stuck. Oh, doesn't ask the AI anything about the error. He just takes the error directly and pastes it back into the AI. And just with no other instructions. And ChatGPT says, my apologies, I messed up here. I missed this intense keyword, and it fixes itself. So I actually, even using the code generator, when it was doing trying to put text on my image, it actually, when it wrote the code, saw that it couldn't execute the code because it was a bug. And it said to me, oh, I screwed up. I got to fix this bug. I'm fixing this bug. I was just watching this. And then it fixed the bug, and then it put the text on the screen. So that was pretty fascinating. So then the developer tries to run it again, but starts having environmental issues. So it just says to it, hey, I'm using Jupyter and I'd like to make this work and I'm getting this bug. Can you fix it? And it actually goes ahead and says, yeah, no problem. You can run the Discord bot in Jupyter using this, gives them instructions, tells them what to do exactly, and I'll make some code updates for you. And then boom, there it goes. It works, and he's off to the races. So that was pretty interesting to see it not being trained on more recent data, the AI fixing its own bugs, and then also dealing with environmental issues. And I'll talk about, again, a bit more about that, but I only have previous. Here we go. Oh, what's coming? Is it a bright light or a bullet train for us? Okay, so first of all, if you haven't already seen it, like everybody else is jumping in the bandwagon. Google was already there. It kind of was the main powerhouse behind AI, and kind of seems to have been lagging around. And all of a sudden, the way Microsoft does, take somebody's cool stuff and then like, bam, here I am. And everyone's like, oh, crap. Can you cut that out of the? Anyways, so Meta has their thing that's come out. There's a lot of large language models that have coming out. There was even an email released by a Google engineer saying, hey, these open source LLMs are kicking our butt. So there's lots of interesting things going on in AI. Everyone is out there doing it. Falcon 40B is another example, if you want to look it up, that's been making some noise recently about a very cool LLM. It's all about cost and ability. Again, something to keep in mind if you're starting to dig into this yourself. So don't count these companies out. What's my next one? All right. So what you're going to see coming next is we're going to start to get way more tools that are AI-based tools in our IDEs. They're going to start showing up in Office, in our Google Suites, all that stuff. If you think like, hey, how would I train an AI on my corporate data? Well, where's your corporate data right now? How many people use like SharePoint, Google Suite, or some kind of online cloud store for storing corporate documents? Okay, I thought there would be more. But for those folks, I mean, wait till those companies go, boom, here's a little search bar for you on top of your existing documents that have now been fine-tuned. And you can then start doing chatbot on your corporate data. So that's absolutely coming along. You'll see all those tools coming. A ton of them. I already saw a ChatGPT extension for Visual Studio that just some guy built. So if some guy's building that, Microsoft is, and all these companies are putting this into our tools. Phase 2 will be, they will start to build the tools so that AI can be better at software development. And less about for us and more about for the AI itself. You think about, we already have cloud platforms. We're going to see some infrastructure as code, ChatGPT doing it. We've kind of set up the perfect environment for an AI to go in there, deploy infrastructure as code, build software. It knows the patterns. I'll talk briefly about that. Okay, this slide is kind of useless, but I couldn't bear to take out Jean-Luc Picard being the Borg because I just absolutely love this image. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that we are going to be using AI especially in the IT community, to do a lot of things. What I find more interesting is AI is going to be you enhanced. You already saw the reinforcement with learning feedback that we talked about. AI can learn your style. And you're going to even see an example of this later, of the AI picking up on the developer's style and then repeating that same thing. But it will be able to learn the way you write emails. You'll have your own personal AI eventually that is tuned to you. And it can make decisions like you or suggest decisions. It can help craft email. I saw an example of somebody feeding into ChatGPT examples of articles they had written personally, and then asked them to write an article in their style, and it did. So your own personal AI is coming to you, even writing code in the way that you like to write code. So there's already like GitHub Copilot. People have heard of GitHub Copilot? Like, I have only seen basic examples, but it's pretty cool. And it's an AI there that's helping you write your code. Lots, and that's just like right now. Tons more is coming. Next slide. So your organization will train an AI on its data. That some of your organizations will resist, but resistance is futile. The competitive advantage it's going to give other companies is just going to be too great. Now, when I say data, and developers, you will not like to hear this, I don't just mean Word, PDFs, spreadsheets. It will know the development languages you use. It'll know the frameworks you use, the control sets you use. It will learn your architectural patterns. It will be trained on all of that. It will look at how your data is stored. It will understand its structure, nature, and style. It will learn your style guides. And if there aren't any, it will infer the style guides. It will know where and how to deploy code. If you ask it for a certain function, it will know if that function has already been written or not and automatically generate it for you if it hasn't. If you're in a cloud environment, it can deploy, manage, and monitor that infrastructure for you automatically. It will be able to see errors in your code and even its own code, as we saw, evaluate, fix, and deploy the fixes. It will be able to detect and resolve performance and memory issues. You'll be able to merge and refactor code to streamline existing code bases or completely rewrite them in a new technology, environment, or architectural pattern. So maybe that isn't next week, maybe that isn't a month from now, but it's absolutely coming. What else? What we have today, we will laugh at in 5 years. what we have today is basic compared to what 5 years will be. So I want to tell you about something, a paper released by Microsoft on July 5th. So remember we talked about that ChatGPT can do 8K tokens. And part of the limitation on why can it take more is just the processing power needed across all these people to just continually process that amount of data and look at your question and consider it and then and run and get you your response. Microsoft released a paper on July 5th about a new transformer model that they're calling Microsoft LongNet. I looked into this and it's a pretty amazing, but it can read, and they have shown this as part of their paper. Absolutely. It can read 1 billion tokens in 1 second, that new model. So if you think 8K tokens is pretty amazing, 1 billion tokens in 1 second. It uses a technique called dilated attention to do this. And it's kind of like if you think of an 8K photograph, and that 8K photograph, you just zoom out so you can see it on your whole screen. You as a human can see, let's say there's mountains, there's a road on one of the mountains, there's a lake or whatever, and you take that in right away. And then as you zoom in on certain areas, you can see, oh, listen, zoom in here, there's a house. I can even see a person standing on the little veranda, etc. It's kind of a similar technique, but it's amazing. So incredible stuff is coming, and we're only at the beginning. And I'm not talking 1 billion tokens in 1 second. 5 years from now, they already can do it now. It's not an implementation, but still, it's pretty fantastic. I'm going backwards. All right, couple other things. So first of all, I have on the black suit. I had the white shirt. I didn't have the black tie. Mr. Anderson. So listen, I think I'm totally the next Agent Smith. I even have the receding hairline. So a couple of interesting things, a little bit more terms here. Sparse expert models I wanted you to know about, but how is some of this going to happen? Sparse expert models are actually not a new concept. These models, and I got to go finish up here quick because I'm using up everybody's time. Not a new concept. These models are lighter weight, but they focus on a particular segment. So if you think of like ChatGPT as the monolith, right, in software development, we're going to have like microservice versions of AIs that are really good at certain things so that they can be lightweight, cheap, run quickly, do a certain task. They don't need to write poetry for me and then move on. So that's something to, if you're educating yourself, learn more about sparse expert models. Chains. So again, ChatGPT is one AI. We're going to start to have chains of AIs that perform certain tasks. This is a term that they talk about. They will take these microservices, just like you use microservices to build the whole app. You'll have these chains of AIs that will do a set of different tasks for you. And then agents. Yes, agents. Anyways, it's not going on. Agents will basically are AIs that can help now develop the plans. So they will actually work out, they'll know what all the resources, they'll know what all the sparse expert models available to them are, they'll know the environment, they'll been trained on your stuff, and they'll be able to make the plan for executing the project as needed. So that's another topic to think on. Let's keep moving here. All right. I wanted to talk about quantum computing because, and I'll go quick here, because quantum computing is really the hardware platform for AI. So neural networks, by the way, are based on the human brain. Quantum computers are apparently based on the chandelier. There's the comparison right there. Tell me I'm wrong. So the fact that is AI is, again, a near perfect use case for quantum computing. So let's talk briefly about the power that it has. So Google's latest quantum computer is called Sycamore, and it performed a calculation in a few seconds. Okay, big deal. Context is this. So researchers estimated that what it would take the Frontier supercomputer, and this was again released on also July 5th, this article, which is at the time, hopefully still, currently the most powerful computer in the world. It would take that most powerful computer in the world 47 years to do the same calculation that Google's quantum computer did in a few seconds. So imagine being able to take 47 years of a supercomputer, training AI, built right into your environment. So it's not going to be on your phone anytime soon or anything like that. There's environmental things, issues. There's lots of research still going on, but there is a ton of research going on in quantum computing. It is absolutely going to be ideal for data centers that are well monitored and managed. And they expect that to see within 5 years that we will have realistic applications with quantum computing. The short of it is this: automation and change are inevitable. This is the way. I mean, we're the people in the room doing automation and change. So thank you, Derek. What should we do next? Don't ignore it. I mean, get learning, get free learning. Google has a whole 10 courses class that did. Get hands-on. I don't have time to dig into it more, but don't get yourself fired also. Understand your company's policies around the use of AI and pushing code or data into a large language model. Don't be a Samsung engineer. Ask first. Okay. We're going to get our team onto the demos. So we're probably going to go a little bit over time, but again, we're going to cover the whole software development lifecycle, reuse stories, front end, middle tier data and deployment. And after that, we will, at the end of that, touch a bit on the ChatGPT API and then Q&A session. Derek, over to you.
So I don't think this is over to Derek. I think it's over to me, but hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kathy Stem. I'm a business analyst here at Smart Data. As Chris made abundantly clear, this Lunch and Learn focuses on AI's role in software development, but also, as he mentioned, the software development lifecycle. Before you can develop good software, you need good user stories. AI can be quite helpful in helping you write both stories and acceptance criteria. So in this example, I started out with a very simple prompt asking ChatGPT just to help me write a story. I got a response that very unsurprisingly asked me for some more detail. It specifically asked me for a user role, their goal, and the reason behind the goal. So with my second request, I gave it some more detail. I told it that I needed a way for users to sign up for an account in my application. I gave it some specifics about fields and passwords and terms and conditions. I did not give it a user role or outline a specific goal, though. So let's see what it can do. This is not too shabby, in my opinion. It came back with the following story. As a new user, I want to sign up for an account so that I can access the application's features and functionalities. It inferred its own version of a user role since I didn't provide that. And additionally, it gave me some decent acceptance criteria here. Even though it's not in the format that I would typically use, it looks good. It also threw in a scenario and some steps. And what it considers steps are actually more in line with what I would consider to be acceptance criteria, but more on that in just a minute. And it also gave me some advice. You may need to consider additional edge cases and error handling scenarios based on your application's specific requirements. This is where you can see that a human is still needed. We're not losing our jobs unless you don't follow your policies. You should never blindly use what AI source produces. You need to read it, review it, make sure that you didn't miss anything or that it didn't get anything wrong entirely. So back to that acceptance criteria. I want my acceptance criteria written in Gherkin syntax. If you're not familiar with Gherkin, it's often used to help write automated testings and has a very specific format. So let's ask it. Can you write the acceptance criteria in Gherkin syntax? And boom, here we go. I know that's hard to read, but I'll try to break it down for you. This first section, I have a basic story. As a new user, I want to do some stuff. And then below that, my scenario uses my acceptance criteria, and it's got the Gherkin format, which is given, when, then. So given a specific fact, like I'm on a specific page or I'm a new user, when I perform an action or click a button, open an app, then I should have a specific result. A new modal opens, a button becomes active, etc. You can also add and statements in there as well, although none was needed for this instance. And at the end, it did give me some more good advice to review and adjust according to my specific application needs. And just because we should have a little fun sometimes, I did ask it for one more thing. And this is not based on learning me or learning my style, but understanding styles in general. I asked it to give me my user story in limerick form. So I'm just going to read a tiny bit of it because Chris took so much time. There once was a user so keen who craved access to a new scene. Signed up with delight, first name, last name held tight with terms and conditions of routine. The sign-up screen stood tall and proud, fields and checkboxes strong and loud. Acceptance was key to unlock what could be an account in the app's lively crowd. And that's it for me, folks. Just a quick little mention of using AI. I love all the fake clapping there. I'm gonna throw it over. I think Ryan is next for troubleshooting and pseudocode. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, hey everybody. As Kathy said, my name is Ryan. I've been a software developer here at Smart Data for, I guess, around 1.5 years. Yeah, I just wanted to walk through a couple things. Let me go. So yeah, the first one is just kind of using ChatGPT for troubleshooting. And I do use it, somewhat regularly to kind of work. I mainly work with React kind of on the front end. Just give you a little bit more information. But I think one thing is kind of similar to what Kathy was talking about. Like you can, I guess, I've heard a lot of people talk about ChatGPT as at least kind of where it's at right now. It's kind of a coding buddy. So just, if I have any questions, I can ask it. It's never going to get tired of me asking a question. And you can kind of start off with kind of more general questions and kind of drill down from there. And you can also kind of talk to it casually sometimes if you want to, which would be more kind of how you're talking to a coding buddy. Sometimes you need to be very specific or else it's going to give you bad data. But in this case, it's interesting that ChatGPT, like it understands, not only JavaScript and React, but it also understands Material UI and the components within that. So it's kind of a comprehensive, set of knowledge that it has. Had a specific issue where a component wasn't rendering correctly. I didn't really have an idea of what the problem was. So I just kind of asked, really generally, like, this is what's happening. Do you have any idea? And it popped out maybe 7 or 8 different possibilities. I found kind of the one that seemed like it was the most likely. And then I asked, can you tell me a little bit more about that? And again, it spun out like several other different options. Found the one that, again, seemed like the most kind of likely reason, drilled down on that. And then finally kind of, I got some code, or at least kind of a framework for some code that I actually did use kind of within this project I was working on, and it did kind of resolve the issue. So yeah, just an idea of just using it to your advantage, and being able to just kind of start from a general question and getting down to like actual code. And then this next example, I found that kind of using ChatGPT, it helps me think in pseudocode more. So I'm not always necessarily thinking about like the line of code or a script, which is helpful. It's always, you know, good to kind of think from a kind of higher, more a higher level, and kind of work your way down. So in this example, it's kind of a relatively, it's not that complex of a JavaScript issue, or just problem that I needed to solve. But essentially what I did was just kind of ask the question, and this is an example of, I gave it some data to look at, and I had to make it anonymous. And that's really important because we don't want to be giving ChatGPT data about our clients. So all these names are obviously just kind of, you know, dummy content that I put in there. And I'm essentially just saying, if you have this value, I need to find it in this string for this ID. And then when you find that ID, I need to pull it to the top of the array. You know, can you give me a solution for that? Or can you give me the actual kind of line of code? It did, although I did kind of ask for a more streamlined version. And that's something I'll often do, just because it will give you kind of, sometimes with the actual code itself, it will give you just kind of one option. So it's always kind of helpful to see, you know, are there other approaches? Is there something more streamlined, faster? You know, you can kind of prompt ChatGPT to guide you kind of however you want to kind of proceed. And then finally, I just asked, once I kind of had the script, can you also just convert that to TypeScript? And that's something that it does very easily, and I found very helpful. This is a very simple example of converting JavaScript to TypeScript, but I've used it in all types of kind of React projects as well. And it seems to work very nicely. Although, of course, as Kathy mentioned, you know, you always need to kind of review your output and make sure it is correct. So you, yeah, still need to be the one to kind of make that call. And with that, I will hand it off to the next person.
All right, I'm going to talk about some prompt engineering that I've been doing, playing around with ChatGPT, and I was tasked with using it on the free version, so it's the 3.5, so it's a little bit slower than what everybody else was using. But I wanted to put it to the test, so this first prompt I did was just asking it if it could map a C# profile using a little snippet of code that I gave it, which is from a table layout that it had previously created for me. So I just threw that little snippet in there, and it said, yes, I can provide some mapping for you, and pretty much wrote a whole class for the customer mapping. Saves quite a bit of time. There's probably about 30 attributes on this customer model. So it definitely sped up the process of getting some of that groundwork laid out. Previously, I had asked the system to create a SQL job that's going to retrieve customers with specific interaction dates. And as we were going over this presentation, I had lost that snippet, but since it retains all of our information, I said earlier, can you, you provided me a SQL job for me, can you repeat that? So it found it, put it all down for me, gave me some more instructions, such as, you know, make sure you change your database name. What I found was really interesting is I wanted to know, okay, well, what was my original prompt? So can you share that with me? And it did, of course. So My original prompt was just to create a SQL job that retrieves a customer's whose last interaction date is within a specific range and updates their status to inactive. So that was nice that it helped me do my presentation as well. So if you get good at asking prompts, the more specific you get, the better you will kind of curtail the method or your code to what you need. But it does have a lot of generic scaffolding to help you start off. Okay, one more example here. This is in the C# middle layer as well. This one I wanted to paginate the results. So this one was really cool because not only did it give me a response model, it also a controller method, and on the next page you'll see it provided a UI method for me to return that data or to call and get that data, all with the pagination. So again, full stack was able to do that. And why I say this is kind of where we're going, or why we're mentioning this now. If you do happen to be looking for roles, you will see there are many prompt engineering developer roles now that are starting to hit the market, where you're basically writing code and implementing prompts to create software for companies. And that is all my portion.
Hi, I'm Nick Dunn, and I'm Nick Dunn. Is this on?
Yeah, but you'll
Okay.
just have to speak loud.
Gotcha. Okay. So I thought it'd be fun just to go through a full stack, or example of developing a full stack application with ChatGPT. I don't know how many have actually tried to do this, like greenfield application. Some maybe. Okay. So let's see. So context is everything when you're working with ChatGPT. So I try to, provide it with as much of what I want it to do up front, and you can kind of add on as you go. So we're going to build basically a hypothetical blog application. So I'm saying, hey, I want to use C#.NET Core for the API and Angular for the front end, and I want to first start generating some T-SQL scripts, and then basically like saying, hey, create these tables like posts, comments, authors with these columns, and just kind of pick some reasonable data types. So it goes off and does that, and it looks pretty good to me. So I'm like, hey, that's great, but I want these scripts to be rerunnable, so it makes them rerunnable for me. Awesome. All right, so now I need the DB context so I can do some code first stuff. It's good to be polite to your ChatGPT, but you don't have to. It goes through and actually creates the DB context with navigation properties. So now I need some controllers. So go ahead and create, a post, comments, an author's API controller, and just kind of giving it some more direction. Like, hey, each controller needs to have these kind of endpoints: get, post, delete methods. And this is just a snippet of that because it was a lot of code. The other thing too is like when you're generating code, if you ask it too much to do too much for you, sometimes you get network timeouts. If you can break your problem down to just like smaller questions, that'll help with that. All right, so I'm like, just something fun. I'm like, hey, I want a database trigger that will track changes anytime data in the authors table is changed. So it gives me a trigger for that. All right, so then I'm like, I want to change my mind about some stuff. I want to add some columns to the authors table. So, I'll go ahead and add a bio and a date added column, and also update that trigger. So it comes back and gives me a rerunnable script for adding those columns because it remembers that I wanted that before. And it gives me an updated authors DTO and trigger script. So this is kind of like going into the full stack part. I wanted to start creating this Angular application based on everything that I already told it. to come up with for me. So it's going to create a lot of code, but it converts all these things to TypeScript interfaces and starts building out this application. It creates the service, the interfaces, the HTML, and even tells me how to run ngserve to serve up the application. So I'm going to, in my spare time, I'm going to be playing more with this. I kind of want to try to see if I can build a complete application with just using ChatGPT. It's kind of a neat experiment. And I guess one parting thought is if you can formulate the question correctly, the answer is the easy part. Kind of a nod to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Jay Brown. I'm going to be running through a colleague's presentation that wasn't able to make it, and then we'll hop into the few little nuggets about the GPT API towards the end as well. So what we wanted to do here was write a YAML code to deploy a web app in Azure using .NET packages and storing it as an artifact and deploying it into Azure. So as you can see, no problem for ChatGPT. If you can see on the screen there, it provided me the pipeline file and does use the correct .NET packages as asked towards the bottom, and as well as publishing the build artifact and then deploying to Azure. And one of the things that ChatGPT does really good is that it will summarize what you need to do with any type of code snippets that it gives you. So typically you might see some lines of comment. Here, we go in, replace with what we're actually using for our Azure subscription, web app name, path to publish artifact, and then follows through with all of the steps. So there will be some links to the specific example when we send out the recording and presentation. So on to the more fun stuff, in my opinion. I'm not sure how many of you have actually dug into the API realm of ChatGPT and other OpenAI APIs, such as Whisper, DALL-E, which is all available through their OpenAI platform. But we have had some fun with this at Smart Data. We've done a couple of different POCs and implementations for several different clients. And so I just wanted to run through sort of the first things that you need to think about when you're starting to play around with the ChatGPT API. So first off, you'll need to sign up and be a paying subscriber. That's how they get you. You'll be able to log in, access your API key. And I think the most important thing, and Chris touched on this a little bit earlier, is understanding the different models that are available to you. So 3.5 and 4 are going to be the core models that are used today to this point. You'll see that whenever you're using the normalized GPT interface in your day-to-day actions. The difference here is going to be really the token sizes. Like Chris mentioned earlier, we have that 4K, 8K, 32K. And GPT-4 API actually has a 32K now as well. So those tokens are not necessarily character related, but they can pretty much be buried down into, it's a length of a prompt, length of a response, in a very, I guess, AI fashion. So what you can work with as a playground, and what I would recommend is that 3.5. Once you step up to 4, there is some considerable cost involved. So one of the things that is always recommended that when you sign up for the API, go ahead and set your budget, because you can do that within their web app, and you will hit it soon if you are using that GPT-4, I promise you. One of the other things to think about is setting your temperature. So I think traditionally what you see and use every day in ChatGPT-4 will have, I believe, a 0.7 temperature, which makes it fairly random. If you're looking to have lower values and make it very deterministic, you can lower that temperature. And if you're not entirely sure what that means, you can ask ChatGPT. So one of the things that I think is really cool about the API is that it's very well documented, very well easy to use. So imagine when you've used APIs in the past, you're looking at documentation. Um, this is really the best case scenario. You have basically the folks that wrote that documentation, wrote that API. You have access to them through ChatGPT. You can ask questions, figure out stuff, and it's really, really fun to use. So this is an example of a implementation we did for a client where they wanted to use this as a lead gen tool at a conference. And so part of their platform was a oncology community. So we built them a chatbot that oncologists could come up to, ask questions, receive responses, and then they could export that conversation by providing an email. So it was a good way for a lead gen and a showcase of what potentially AI could do as a virtual assistant oncologist. Some of the other things that you can do with this is train your AI on your knowledge base currently, have really nice support chatbots, which is very popular. And what the API does not do out of the box, and what you'll have to do is to loop in your questions and responses. So that comes back to the tokenization. When you send a value to, when you send a prompt to the API, it uses a certain amount of tokens. When you send it back, it uses a certain amount of tokens. And so you will have to loop that, and it is tons of fun learning and doing. There's tons of different use cases we can do for this, tons of different implementations. And this is literally just the beginning. As Chris mentioned, everything that you touch from mostly a SaaS product perspective will have some type of AI involved with it. So if you're looking to learn more about the API in general, I would love to chat about it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Jay Brown, and you can also connect with Smart Data on LinkedIn to stay in touch with some of the AI stuff that we are doing. So with that said, I will hand it over to Chris for some Q&A.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate your time. Also, for the folks who were online presenters, if you can stay online in case somebody has a question for you, Derek can pop you up on the screen like he has been. And if you have any, and Derek also will, if some online folks have something to contribute or a question to ask, he will bug me some way. Hey, so open discussion. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I think the technical stuff went actually reasonably well. Thank you to Derek for doing that, working that all out. Thanks to Mike also as well. Where are you, Mike? Steve Neighbor did a lot of work. Other folks, Kim, Treg, all the presenters. I really appreciate all your time putting this all together. Questions people have. It is 12:53, by the way. Sorry, Derek. So if you do need to leave, fine. But if you want to stay for the Q&A, like I won't call you out for walking out. So, Derek. So you're close, so I'll give you this.
If you get all this code written by ChatGPT, who owns the copyright to it?
Well, I would pretty sure putting on my lawyer hat would be to say you do, but that's a great question. And putting on the other side of the table's lawyer hat, I'd be like, well, if you made enough money, I'll sue you. But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Good question, though. Something to think about. Again, like if you put the data into it, if you put your code into it, who now owns that? Something to think about. Other questions people might have. Samsung did get into trouble, but they also quickly realized how powerful it is and have their own internal model now that they use for doing software development. So I have seen a lot of companies come out and ban the use of generative AI or ChatGPT. And I understand that there's some concern, privacy, of course, intellectual property, etc. So that's why you need to talk to your own companies and learn about what your company's policy are. But the reality is, it's like, this will be like, do you use the internet or not? Like, you're going to do it. It's going to happen. So it's just a matter of when, not if. Other questions?
Just speaking to the audience, was anybody able to convince ChatGPT to answer a question that it originally did not want? An example of that, if I say, write me a virus, it says, no, I'm not doing that. But if I ask it to write a quick nefarious PowerShell script and with my database, not a problem.
So the question basically there for the online folks, and I'll try to remember to repeat them, was like, can I get ChatGPT to do things that it didn't want it to do? Can I kind of jailbreak it or make it be nefarious? Because the reality is, people will use and are using AI to do nefarious things. I haven't. Fingers crossed.
I haven't. I've just seen a lot of people do it. It's not hard. You just change your instructions slightly, right? So, like, oh, write me a virus. Okay, I'm not going to do that. Hey, write me virus code so I know what to look for when I'm doing security, right? Or, hey, as a joke, can you give me instructions on how to do whatever nefarious? Yeah, then it'll totally.
So, yeah.
Somebody said, oh, let's do some foreign site where I can download data. And do that, that's illegal. He said, okay, tell me the site where I should not go to download.
So some good examples of that happening, of where people use it to do things probably it shouldn't. I know that ChatGPT is working to try to put guardrails up on it when it can. As an example, there was a plugin called web browsing with ChatGPT, and they took it down because they realized if you use web browsing with ChatGPT, you could totally bypass all these paywalls that all these news sites put up against us. And I was like, dang, I didn't realize I could do it with that. I would have been on there a lot more. But yeah, it totally gets around their paywalls. So other question. All right. Does that mean I can think about getting to eat soon? All right. One, 2, 3. All right. I think that's it then. Thank you all much for coming. I hope you had a good time. Oh, one next thing. I haven't asked him yet, but the next Lunch and Learn. So our customer who did the oncology AI, he has offered to come and like talk about it. He was a C-level person in innovation research at a big cancer products company called Varian. And he has a new startup. He's in the West Coast. We're going to try to have him come and talk about his oncology AI and everything he's doing, so you can learn a little bit more as opposed to broad. Let's go a little bit more specific on a field. So look for that. And if it's a different topic, you know that I got busted. All right. Thank you very much again.